Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Life Celebration by Franklin Grief Symposium for the month of April. Just glad to see everyone who has come in and joined us virtually. Today, our subject is grief in real time, and Dr. Cunningham has quite a bit to cover today, so we're not going to prolong anything. We're going to go ahead and send it over to Dr. Cunningham. How are you doing, Dr. Cunningham?
I'm well. How are you, Marie?
I am doing well today. Had a
Good.
long Sunday morning, but everything's going well.
Well, good. Good, good, good.
Yes.
Glad to see you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our monthly grief symposium that is hosted by a live celebration by Franklin. We are so excited that you're here. Those of you who are tuning in live, we see you coming on Facebook and we see you guys coming in on YouTube as well. And as always, we just want to greet you. And always want to give you what I call kudos for being in a space like this, right? Because no one wants to just log on grief support. If you are here, there's a reason why you're here. That means someone that you love, that you were connected to, has passed. But I'm glad you're here. Kudos for being here to get the help, to help you process through. So if this is your first time watching us live, would you put a 1 in the comment section so our digital team can absolutely welcome you? If this is your first time on YouTube, we want you to do the same thing as well, not just Facebook, but on YouTube as well. So before we get into it, I always want to appreciate the Franklins for providing this service. It is not just for their families that we serve, but it's also for anybody who wants to participate. So we're live only now, I think about 3 times a year. And I think the next time I'll be there in person to do this is around July. But all of the other months, you still get support, but it's virtually. You can do it from the comfort of your home. So we want you to mark your calendars. Those of you who are here for the first time, mark your calendars every fourth Sunday. We are here, rain, shine, sleet, or snow. And if there's going to be a change, we will certainly let you know. Look at there, I rhymed. Come on. Rain, sleet, shine, or snow. If there's going to be a change, we'll let you know. So again, we appreciate you for being here. And if you are watching the replay, because some of you cannot join us live, you're actually going to watch the replay. We're glad that you're here as well. If it's your first time watching the replay, just drop a 1 in the comments and we'll come back and definitely comment to you. So I see Jimmy is on. We have a first timer, I believe. She's a first timer. She said Debbie referred her. Her name is Maisha. Welcome. We are so glad to see all of you. Again, ask you to share and tag so other people can join us. If you haven't done so already, if you're able to, there's an opportunity to sign in virtually as well. You can definitely go to the website of the funeral home and definitely click the link, or you can use the QR code. So we're really techie now, so you can use the QR code to sign in as well. To get the handout, I'm getting all of my announcements out in the very, very beginning, all of the church announcements. To get the handout for today, you can look under the description of this video and you can click that link and you can download the handout. So if you're not able to do it while we're watching, you can definitely do it after we finish the broadcast, okay? So before I get into the meat and potatoes, the handout, that's what I call the meat and potatoes of why we're here, I always want to do a check-in. If you've been here before, you already know what I'm getting ready to ask, right? I keep looking to the side because I have my phone here where I can see those of you who are on Facebook and I can see your comments. So, hey, Debbie. Debbie says she's on the road. Good. Love that. She's on the road, but she's still watching. Be sure to keep your eyes on the road. Okay. We want to keep you safe. So the link has been dropped in the comment section for you to go ahead and click. All right. So I always want to do a check-in. So start dropping in the comments if you can, if you're not driving. Okay. If you're not driving, if you're stationary, drop in the comments. How are you doing? You know, how has life been to you? How has your grief journey been since I saw you last month? How has your grief journey been since I saw you last month? I always want to lead by an example, meaning I too have to take care of myself. Even though I'm here as your grief facilitator, your grief counselor, I am a person that has to do my grief work as well. None of us are exempt. Even though the Franklins own the funeral home, guess what? They own the funeral home, but they have to do their grief work too. Every one of us, we have to do that. So what have I been doing since I saw you guys last month? I'm still focused on my physical health. My physical health. I have been experiencing some challenges over the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years dealing with my blood pressure. Well, got that maintained. It's been going well since at least about eight or 9 months now. But what I discovered here recently, the root cause of the blood pressure increasing, guess what it had to deal with? Menopause. So I'm working on that now. One of the things that I did, I switched primary caregivers because I had a doctor who was very dismissive, did not want to answer my questions, just really didn't appear as if she cared about my care, even though I'm spending hundreds of dollars on insurance. Yeah. So guess what I did? I am in search for a new primary care doctor. I heard about another doctor and who cares? And I really want to start with holistic measures, a functional doctor. And so even though he's a primary care doctor, he believes in holistic care as well. So guess what? This man is so good. The waiting list was a year. The waiting list was a year. But listen, let me tell you what I did. I did some good old praying. I did some good old fasting. And I asked the Lord, I said, listen, I can't wait a year to get with this man. I need that expedited. I'll take 6 months, 4 months, but I cannot wait a year. And during that time of fasting, I was led to reach out to a person who works there in that system. And I said, hey, can you check out to see what you can do to get me in? And she said, normally, she said, I don't know, I'm not able to do that, but you can go to my doctor. My doctor is good. And I'll try to do that. I'll try to get you into my doctor. Y'all, after I messaged that person and I got a message about 15 minutes later or less saying that God heard your prayer. She didn't even know I prayed. She said, God heard your prayer. You're in with the doctor that I wanted to be with. So I'm looking forward to getting good results from that. So that is what I've been doing. And that is how my journey has been since I saw you guys last. So I see Dr. Rosalind Phoenix, my one of my mentees is on. Good to see you, daughter. You're not driving, Debbie? Okay, that is good. That is good. Hello, Miss Wanda. Good to see you. Good to see all of you all on Facebook. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about while we're here. Our subject today is called grief in real time. If you are able to put that in the comments section, put grief in real time. We're going to talk about surviving, processing, and rebuilding. Surviving, processing, and rebuilding. This is what I have found working with people in grief counseling is that many people don't like to process things. Even when you're not dealing with grief, you don't want to sit in the pain. A lot of us do things such as avoidance. We're going to avoid feeling the pain. So I'm going to just do things to keep me busy. So my encouragement for you today is to not do that. I want you to move beyond surviving, learn how to process and rebuild after a loss. After a loss, especially a death loss. So let's start. We always want to define what we're dealing with, because if we don't understand the thing, for those of you who are people of God, you understand the scripture says, in all that getting, get what? Understanding. So we've got to understand what grief is. That is something I discovered after working with people for over 35 years in the death care industry. Many of us, especially minority people, we do not understand what grief is. We don't understand what depression is. We don't understand what anxiety is. So this is why we always start with giving you the definition. So when you understand the thing, you can better apply that information. Because here's the reality. Have you ever gone to spaces, to webinars, to conferences, to church, to these places? You take copious notes, but you never go back and read the notes. That was me. That was me for years. I would take copious notes, but I would not go back to read the notes. And why was it important to go back and read the notes? Because I cannot apply. There can be no transformation, put it that way, if I don't apply the information that I receive. Okay? So if you're able to, take notes. take notes as we go along. So thank you, Miss Wanda, for putting that in the chat. Thank you, Charlotte. Good to see you. Thank you, Tassie. Good to see you. Grief in real time. So what is grief? For those who are here for the very first time, it's an emotional, it's a physical, spiritual, and psychological response to what? Any kind of loss. Most people think they don't need grief support because they haven't had a death. Oh, but you need grief support because you've had the loss of an absent father or an absent mother, or you lost your job, or some loss took place in your life, and it requires you to grieve and mourn it. So when most people hear about that, again, they reduce it down to one idea that somebody died. But for the person in grief, that's not the only loss that you've experienced. That's only surface level stuff. Okay. In reality, death loss is actually a cluster. Can somebody put that in the comment section? It's a cluster of losses happening all at the same time. It's a cluster of them. But people on the outside of grief, of your grief experience, they only see, oh, your dad died. Okay, well, I'm praying for you. Okay, you're going to be okay. But they don't realize all of the things that's attached to your dad's death. Okay? We call those invisible things to other people. So it's the gap between the grieving person's experience and what others actually recognize. That's what we're going to talk about today. And that's one of the most painful parts of grief, because the person in grief, they're barely hanging on. The people on the outside of the grief experience will say, boy, you look good. You look good today, just because I slapped on some earrings and I got on a little bit of lipstick and I got on some foundation. It looks like all is well. But listen, if I tell you the truth, I'm tired in my body. But we know how to dress things up. Okay. So just because a person in grief looks like everything is okay, it doesn't mean everything is okay. So we have to look at the different types of losses that are within a death loss. That's so powerful. We're going to teach you the different types of losses that are within a death loss. Okay. It talks about outsiders often underestimate what this really is. They really do. It's not just about missing someone. It's your brain still expecting the person to be part of your lifestyle. I pause for a moment so you can kind of take that in, so you can receive that as an aha moment. When it's a death loss, okay, you have all these other losses. It's about missing that person. And your brain is trying to wrap itself around the fact that they are no longer here. They are no longer a part of the daily things that you would do every day. Getting up to eat breakfast, going to lunch on a particular day. That person's not there, so you got to, I got to figure out how to do that again. It's the relationship is no longer accessible. It's not accessible. So what's one thing you lose? In addition to losing a person, you lose your identity. Yeah, you lose your identity. Okay. This is one of the most overlooked losses. Okay. People outside of grief rarely recognize this, but internally, grief often includes that, because if they are gone, the person is gone. Who am I now in relationship to them? Because as human beings, we have a tendency to identify ourselves based upon who we're connected to. Oh, I feel like I preached this morning and I felt something come up in me right there, because I can relate to that. Those of you who don't know my story, again, I went through grief. I've been in this industry, death care, as I stated earlier, for over 35 years, but I never applied the information. I never applied the information to me. I was good at telling other people how to do it. I know I'm not the only one in this virtual room that's good at telling other people what to do. Good at giving instructions. You should do this. You should go there, but never allowing ourselves to do that. Take those instructions. So when I went through a divorce, I had attached myself to the identity of being a pastor's wife. And so when we divorced, because he was not just my husband, he was also my pastor, I was no longer a pastor's wife. And I'm like, Lord, what am I getting ready to do now? I'm like, oh my God, I thought life was over. Not realizing I was single before I met him, which means I had identity. But I had attached my worth, my value, my identity to him because I was connected to him. Okay? So this is why grief can feel like disorientation, because it's like you're walking around just like, oh, what's going on? Who am I? Okay, if they are gone, you're like, who am I now? So it's not just sadness. That's a huge mistake that a lot of people make. They think grief only shows up as sadness. No. A lot of times, for many people, grief shows up as anger. It shows up as anger and many other things. So, hey, Tony. Hello, Pastor. Man of God, good to see you. So, yes, so when someone dies, especially a close attachment figure to you, I remember when I was teaching years ago in the mortuary school, and we gave the example. So, the mayor died. The mayor in a local town died. So, he's a public figure, right? And he was married. So she was known as the mayor's wife, or kind of like Oprah and Stedman, right? Stedman gets his identity based upon who he's connected to, Oprah. So when someone dies, especially a close attachment figure, your identity shifts. It shifts. So if it was your spouse that died, you move from being a wife to a widow. You move from being a wife to a widow. If you are a daughter, you move from daughter to becoming a motherless child. Okay? A motherless child. If you are a caregiver, a lot of you are out there are caregivers. You become no longer needed in that role. I can never forget one of my cousins years ago. She took care of her grandmother, and she was there day in and day out. And when grandmother passed, she didn't know what to do with herself. And she said, I'm so used to going to grandmother's house like clockwork. 3:00, I got to do this. 6:00, I got to do this. So she had to figure out who she was. But what about if you're a best friend and your best friend dies? The best friend becomes the one left behind. The one left behind. So that's the loss of identity. Okay. So what about loss of your routine and your rhythm? That's another loss that people don't recognize you experience when you have someone close to you who dies. Okay. You lose your rhythm. You're used to doing what you do with that person. Okay. What is that? It's a daily life disruption. The things that you would normally do day after day, like clockwork, because that person was an integral part of that routine and rhythm. They're not here, and you're trying to figure out, what do I do? What do I do? So what does grief do? It disrupts the nervous system. Somebody put that in the comment section. Grief disrupts your nervous system through broken patterns. Wow, this is so good to me. Through broken patterns, something that sounds so simple, but it is so powerful. Okay? So what's some examples of that? Grief disrupting your nervous system. What is your nervous system? It's a part of your body. Okay? Your morning text or your call stop. I'm laughing because I'm pausing because I'm thinking about how I'm going to say what I'm about to say. Because it's not related to a death loss, but because I've been off and on in the dating scene. I'm not there anymore because I'm focusing on myself because I want to be healthy, if God allows me to connect again in marriage. But when I was in the dating scene, you know how you start talking and you texting every day and you get used to, hey, boo, good morning. Good morning, the good morning text or the good night text, or I'm thinking about you. Listen, when we're not dating anymore, I'm like, oh my God, I don't get the text anymore. Okay? So you mourn those texts. The calls stop coming. Shared meals disappear when you're used to eating lunch together. You're used to eating breakfast together. This is what we did like clockwork for years. And all of a sudden, it's not there. I see Dr. Ross say, Jesus, talk about the dating. Listen, those of you who are married out there, pray for the singles. Listen, the dating scene is real out there. It's crazy. Okay? It's crazy. So outsiders will say, oh, they doing okay. They just had a death loss, but they got all of these other things, okay? What about this? It says caregiving routines end abruptly. When you're used to caregiving, you don't have to do that anymore. Or even arguments or small habits, they vanish. So the thing that you was upset about with that person just got on your last nerve. If he would just let the toilet seat down, I would be fine. I'd be fussing all the time. Can you leave the toilet seat down? Oh, what I would give for the toilet seat to be up. Those were the words of a lady whose husband died. They were married for many, many years. She said that was just so trivial. I was upset about. But they missed that. She missed the toilet seat being up. Being up because her husband would use it. So outsiders would often say, try to get back to your normal routine. Let's not say that to newly people who are in grief. Grief who are newly in people who are new in grief. Don't tell them try to get back to your normal life, because that life is gone. Okay. They do have to find their new normal, but trying to get back to something that will never exist again, they can't, because the person is not here. The truth is, normal no longer exists in that same form. They have to find the new normal. So the brain must rebuild rhythm. Put that. The brain must rebuild rhythm from scratch while still remembering the old ones. That's so good. Your brain in grief, it must what? Rebuild rhythm, a new rhythm. Okay? It's got to do it from scratch while you still remembering the old ones, because your brain, the job that God gave our brain is to remember things. It remembers everything, whether you remember it consciously or not. So what are other losses? After a death happens, we have loss of routine and rhythm. We have loss again of identity. What's another one? Loss of future expectations. That's a huge one as well. Loss of future expectations. Okay? What was supposed to be? It happens when a spouse dies. We were supposed to do a lot of things together. It says this is a deeply painful and often invisible grief layer. This is what grief experts call the future that died too. Oh my God. The future died too when your loved one died, because you're not going to be able to do all the things that you planned. So people not in grief usually focus on the past. Well, at least you had some good memories. Well, yes, we did. But we had some future plans too. But the grieving person is often mourning not just what they had, everything that they were supposed to have. They're grieving that. They are grieving that. Okay? What are some examples of that? Future holidays together. I see you guys coming in on Facebook. Thank you so much for tagging other people. Thank you so much for sharing as you feel comfortable. Would you share the broadcast so people can pop on with us live? So future holidays together. I love the holiday season. And so when you have a loss, it can be challenging. Listen to this one that many people don't expect it to pop up, meaning expect grief to pop up. Retirement plans. When you had to retire, or they retired, and the example I'm giving, sometimes people retire and they're in grief because they didn't plan, because their identity was attached to the job. But in this case, if you have a spouse that dies and you guys had plans when they retired, you didn't get to do them because they died early. Okay? What about weddings and grandchildren and milestones? Grief for our new people. Grief never ends, because grief is an internal emotional response. But what is supposed to end is the pain of it. We were not meant to remain stuck in the pain of grief forever. But know that as you go on this journey, when you have milestones, when you have grandchildren and all of these wonderful things, graduations and things like that, and your loved one is not there, grief is going to pop up. It's going to pop up. You're going to miss them. Like, oh, I wish they were here. Man, you may shed a tear. Boy, I'm rhyming today, ain't I? Woo, I didn't know I'm a poet and didn't know it. That's because I've been hanging around my colleague, GF Soldier. He's a poet, spoken word person. But those special occasions, I can remember one when my mother died. She died in 2006, and shortly after that, that's when I was married. She died during the time I was married, and shortly after that, we moved to a new building. We were wanting to have a bigger space, a bigger church, and we got the building. And I remember it like it happened yesterday, because my brain remembered that. My brain remembered that. So I remember us. My nephew is a truck driver, so he has an 18-wheeler, and I remember him going to the old church and picking up all the furniture and all the belongings, and we just made one transition, one trip in a U-Haul in a 18-wheeler. So he went from the church that we used to have to the new church, And we were in the new church, everybody excited, putting things in the church, all that kind of thing. And when it was time to leave, I went to my car. I drove alone because my husband at the time was already at the church. He stayed a little bit, and I went home. When I got in the car and saw that 18-wheeler empty and the church was full, tears started to roll, and Mama came to my mind and my face, in my memories. I said, oh my God, she's not here. And I had that moment in the car. So you'll have those. Okay. You had dreams about growing old together. We were supposed to sit on the porch, drink coffee, and watch the people pass down the street and wave at them. People don't do that no more. People don't do that. Back in the day, my daddy and mama would sit on the porch all the time, and people blow the horn. They just blowing the horn. Hey, Miss Cunningham, Miss Cunningham. People don't do that anymore. But you had plans of growing old together, or conversations that were never finished. Conversations that were never finished. You were supposed to talk about some things, but you never got around to do it, such as a subject called end of life. End of life. So couples, if you're out there, you need to start talking about end of life things, because it's not just older people that are dying. Back in the day, young people, we thought we were exempt from death and dying. It was only old people dying. That is not true. That is not true. Young people die too. Babies die too. So you want to have this conversation of end of life. An example is coming to mind of a dear friend of mine. She's a classmate. And she got married, and in less than a year, her new husband died. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I asked her one time, I said, did y'all even have time to even talk about end of life stuff? She said, we did. Thankful because she's a person, her P's and Q's, every T's going to be crossed, every I's going to be dotted. She was about her business. So they had that conversation, and they were married less than 1 year, and he died, gone, less than 365 days. So you have a loss of future expectations, okay? Conversations. And this is not only applicable if it's a spouse that dies, if a child dies, and as a parent, you have all of these plans for your children. You want them to do better than you and all of those things. And they die prematurely. They die young. Some of them died in high school. They didn't get to go to the prom. A dear friend of mine comes to mind. She lives up in Kentucky. And I met her a few years ago and had an opportunity to just connect with her. Her daughter died, I believe, when she was 18. And it was maybe 3 or 4 years after the daughter's death. And she made a post and she said, man, for some reason, this particular year, which was about 3 or 4 years after or something like that, if I'm correctly, after her daughter's death, when people started posting those prom pictures, you know how we do. Man, that's a big thing. Prom send away. All of that. She said when the people started posting the prom pictures, her grief just well done. She's like, man, my baby, man, didn't get to go to this. Didn't get to go to that. So you have loss of future expectations. Hi, Cynthia. Blessings to have you here. So, hey, Charlotte. So, loss of future expectations. Okay, so what's another loss that's connected to a death loss? So I hope this is helping you to realize that you're not crazy for feeling the way that you feel. A lot of times in grief, I get asked this a lot. Am I going crazy? I say, no, you're not going crazy. You're just in grief. You're in grief. That's all. Okay. So what's another loss? Loss of emotional safety and security. This is one of the least understood losses. Certain people regulate your nervous system. Oh my God. Let me break it down for you. Who is that person that just calms you when you're in their presence? Doesn't have to be somebody that you're connected to intimately. It can be a friend. It can be anybody. But because of who they are, they just calm you. Like, man, if they're in the room, I'm good. They regulate your nervous system. A spouse who calms you, a parent who grounds you. If I just have my parent in the room, I'm good. Mama died first, and we hated that. And guess what? Me and my sisters did. We over spiritualized her death, so we didn't deal with the grief of it because we had one more parent living, and because he grounded us. Okay, and when he died, we realized, oh my God, we spiritually bypassed with mother's death. What does that mean? We went straight to the spiritual things. Went to scripture versus allowing ourselves to feel and heal. So if it's a friend who makes life feel safe, those people that just when you talk to them, like, oh my God, life is going to be okay. Yeah, you lose that. The emotional safety and security. They regulate your system. Now, we know people who dysregulate our system. You can just think of their name, like, oh my God, your body starts responding in stress. Because there's always, that person, always something going on. Always something going on that can cause your nervous system to be imbalanced. So you have the loss of safety. So when they die, the body often feels unsafe, unanchored. You're hyper vigilant. You're all over the place, and you're emotionally exposed. So this is why grief can feel like anxiety, panic, or restlessness, and not just sadness. All right? So let's move on and talk about why people outside grief don't understand this. A lot of people in grief, they wreck their brains because they're trying to figure out why people don't understand. I said, don't worry about them not understanding. It's okay. They're just proving to you they're not a part of your tribe. And that's okay. You let them be where they are, and you plug into the support systems that you have. Yeah. Maisha said emotional support can sometimes be a pet, an animal. You're exactly right. I have one as well. I got two, as a matter of fact. I live in the house that I grew up in, and we had dogs, but my parents believed dogs belong on the outside of the house. So we couldn't have dogs on the inside. So I know they rolling over in their grave because, listen, my dogs run this house. People come over here and visit. Listen, don't come over here disrupting our vibe. This is their house, not yours. So listen. So you're exactly right. After going through that divorce, my older sister, she ended up getting me a dog. It was a lady at her job. A single mom was given away. She had 2 children, 2 dogs, and a house. She was a single mom, and she was downsized, and she had to give away one of the dogs. And I got one. And definitely, I cannot imagine life without that little dog. Emotional support. Thank you for sharing that. So why people outside grieve don't understand this, because most non-grieving people process. Put that in the comment chat. In the comment section. Process. Most of them don't process death through cognitive understanding. Okay? Let me rephrase that. Most of them do. Non-grieving people, they do process it through their thinking, but not through lived experiences. Okay? They do process it, but it's through thinking, logically, and that's not how grief works. You have to do it through your lived experience. So they have a tendency they focus on the event, the fact that the person passed away, or they expect linear recovery. So, okay, the person died here, so it should be a linear recovery. Time is going to heal all the wounds, and that is not true. Time does not heal the wound. It's what you do with your time that's going to heal that wound. It's what you do with it. If you don't do the work, and none of us are exempt from doing the work, you gotta do the work. If I didn't do the work, I would still be in a mental health hospital where I was 14 years ago, dealing with grief over the death of my marriage. Okay? So non-grieving people, process death through cognitive understanding. Another example is that they measure your grief by visible sadness. Visible. If they see you crying, they say, oh, they're grieving. But if you're silent, they say, oh, they're doing fine. You so strong? How many of you have been told that? Oh, I just can't imagine. You are so strong in this space. And they don't have a clue that you've fallen apart on the inside because they don't understand it. But grief is mostly, again, it's internal, it's cyclical. Again, it's neurological. This is why you must get help to process through it so you can understand what's happening to your body. It's identity shifting. So when someone says you should be over it now, again, that causes the person to say, I'm not over it. So what's wrong with me? Or when a person says, at least they're not suffering anymore. Don't say that. A lot of people in grief, they will say it, let them say it, but you don't say that. I remember I gave the example years ago, a pastor's wife. I had to pause so I can protect, Yeah, a pastor's wife. There was a lady whose son died. He was 18. He didn't die. He was killed. He was murdered. And he was murdered. And his mom was a minister. Could preach you under the pew. Short, 5 feet tall, but a powerful, I used to call a powerhouse. That she was. Her son was murdered. How your loved one dies is definitely going to impact your grief process. because there are different types of grief. So that means she was dealing with trauma and grief. So when she came to church, shortly after he died, after he was murdered, the pastor's wife said, well, you knew the lifestyle he led. He was a part of a gang and stuff like that. Or in the street, dealing with that. The first lady said, you knew the life that he lived. That crushed that woman. And that was over 30 years ago. Over. She's still not right today. Still. She don't preach. She stopped it. She's broken. And the reason she is not just because of what the pastor's wife said to her, but also there were some other underlying things that she had not dealt with. When you're in grief and someone dies, whatever is unaddressed in your life is going to come to the surface. If it's problems in your family, you're strained, your relationships are strained. Whatever it is that you haven't dealt with, all of that is going to come to the forefront. So it often comes across as emotional invalidation when people say those things like you're strong, you're doing okay. That's emotional invalidation because it ignores the multi-layered nature of the loss experience. Yeah. Okay. So what's a helpful reframe? Reframe. I see you guys putting it in the comment section. Thank you. What's a reframe? Okay. Death loss is not one loss. That's how we reframe it. Understanding that it's not one loss. It's a constellation. It's a cluster, okay, of losses. And guess what? They're collapsing into one moment of reality. One moment. So when someone is grieving, they're not just processing the death. They're rebuilding at the same time. Trying to figure out, who am I? One lady's husband died and she didn't know how to pay bills. She didn't know how to pay because he did everything. She did everything. He did everything. So she had to figure out, what do I do? Who do I pay? I don't know how to do this because he did it all. He was not just her husband, but he was the payroll person. He handled the bills at the house. Okay. Had another friend, I always tell her story. She tells it too. He died in an accident on his job. I think he was electrocuted. As a result of that, they received it was a multi-million-dollar case. So she had money. She wanted her husband, but she had money after his death. Well, tell me why a few months, maybe 6 months or so, no, not 6 months, maybe about 3 months after his death, her lights were off. She's a multi-millionaire. Her lights are off. Why were her lights cut off? Because she wasn't used to paying the bill. He did everything for her. She didn't have to do anything like that. So your identity, meaning, safety, your routine, your future, your emotional regulation, gone all at one time. All at one time. So now let's talk about the early days of grief when your grief is fresh. The early days of grief when your grief is fresh. What are some common experiences, especially for those of you who are here for the very first time? Those of you who are new in your grief. What are some experiences? You're going to feel shock, numbness. And guess what? You'll be in shock a greater part of the first year. That's why for our new people, it takes up to 5 years after the loss to find your new normal. Up to. Many people say that's a long time. It's really not. Because a greater part of the first year, you're in shock. Sometimes even up until the second year. Also, something to know is that the second year can be more difficult than the first. Hopefully, you're connecting the dots as to why the second year can be more difficult is because you were in shock the first year. And so you were not experiencing all of the total brunt of the impact. You weren't experiencing it until the second year. So you're in shock, you have brain fog, you can't think, physical symptoms, you're tired, you're heavy, emotional mood swings, you're crying, then you're mad, you're silent. What's the important truth to know there? That early grief is about survival, not strength. Somebody put that in the chat for me. This is blessing me. And I'm not even in grief. I'm just excited about people coming to get this information and hopefully you are applying it. This is what I said. Early grief is about survival, not about strength. So culturally, in the Black community and other marginalized communities, we're taught to not express our feelings, our emotions. That's what strength is. That is not strength. True strength is the ability to express your emotions right in the middle of a crisis. So know that that's why your body is feeling the way it is in the beginning, because you're in survival mode. That's normal. So what people need in this particular stage in early grief, they need permission to feel. Permission to feel. Just yesterday, I co-hosted a conference, and it was for church people, especially in the Black church. We called it conference, but it really wasn't a conference. You know, because we are trying to attract people from the church, because what we have to do, it was called faith and feelings. Faith and feelings, and we focused on the soul, the spirit, and the body. The soul, what's a part of the soul? Again, your mind, your will, and emotions. Because again, what we talked about, you can't pray away what you won't confront. You can't do it. I talked about spiritual bypassing. Okay. So, and what we discovered, a lot of times in the Black community, a lot of times in church, feelings were not acknowledged. Feelings were of the devil, some of us were told. So it's not faith over feelings, it's faith and feelings. Both of them must be acknowledged. You have to have permission to feel, get you some practical support. What's the practical support? Have people cook for you that you trust. Now, because we don't eat everybody's cooking, praise the Lord. As a preacher, you know, everybody want to cook for you. Well, amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had one former student who's a pastor. He and little old ladies with cooking food and stuff. And he said, I can't lie to him. I said, don't lie to the people. You can't lie. God, don't lie. And so they're bringing food, and he has a trash can, and he had a trash can, and it was spotted. It had spots on it, like dots. And he called the trash can Spot. So when he go back the next Sunday, and the lady said, how'd you like my pie, Pastor? Oh, it hit the spot. It hit the spot. Listen, because you can't eat everybody's food, but you want to have. Now they have this new thing called a meal train. It's something digital where you can just sign up, give money, and it's called a meal train. You can do that. You can go over there and help them. I'll never forget one of the church members at the time when I was married. My mom died. One of the church members say, I'm coming over to dust the house for you because guests are coming. I didn't even think about that. Thank you. Now you gotta move beyond your pride and let folk in your house and see what's going on in your house. You got to be able to receive help, but not just meals, help. You can something else practical is called presence. And what they need is less advice, more presence. Okay. So what's the language to avoid in early grief? Be strong and they're in a better place. Let's avoid that. Be strong. They're in a better place. What's some supportive language you can say? I'm here. Notice how I paused. Many of us in grief don't understand what I call the ministry of grief, meaning the ministry of presence. Just be present. You don't have to say a word. We feel like we have to fix them. You can't fix them because they're not broken. They're in grief. So just be there and say, I'm here. I don't have the answers. You don't even have to say that. Say, I'm here. And then you can ask them, how can I support you? And a lot of times the person won't know because they don't know what they need themselves. You can say, you don't have to go through this alone. I'm here. Okay? Because when it really sets in, the support decreases and the reality increases and loneliness intensifies. Loneliness intensifies. I see y'all comments. I'll be over there shortly. I see you, Pastor Wendell. So what are some common questions you can ask during the early grief for people? And you can still ask it if it's beyond even the first 2 years. But common things you can ask yourself is, why am I still hurting? Why am I still hurting? Why has everyone moved on but me? That was one of the questions when I went through divorce. I was asking my therapist because I saw, people from the church, they living their best life, everybody going on and on and on. I'm like, man, I'm stuck in my, why can't I move on? Look like everybody else done moved on. He moved on, everybody moved on. And that was one of the key words that was a trigger for me because when we separated after the divorce, and I received word from one of the members who was thought they were being helpful to me at the time because they loved me and they were just sharing what was going on. They were giving me the commentary. But what I didn't realize, I didn't need to know that because I was already in trauma. but I received the word that it was the week after, I believe, a few days after it was known to the church, that we were going to be separating and divorcing. And I understand that he got up and made an announcement and say the church will roll on and move on. And when I heard those words, that's when my brain cracked. It cracked. And that's why I admitted myself into the mental health hospital. Okay. So, and my therapist told me, he said, well, your journey is different. You were the wife. They weren't. You endured a lot of stuff that they will never, ever know. Oh, bless his name. I feel like running right now. Listen, puppies, my emotional support dogs, go on now. So yeah, who am I now? These are questions you ask yourself. This stage is where processing begins. Processing begins in the early stage. What are some emotional risks? Isolation, suppressing your grief, functional depression. Put that in the chat for me. Functional depression. Many of us are in that space where we're moving around and don't realize we're a functional depressed person. So the last page on the handout, and then we'll be finished. Grief must be expressed, not suppressed. Can somebody put that in the chat for me? Grief must be expressed, not suppressed. So the long journey where the focus is integration, not getting over it, because you never get over it, but you do adjust to it. And so what that looks like when we say you don't get over it, that doesn't mean you're always sad. It doesn't mean that you're stuck. No. It means you start integrating that loss into your life and reframe what healing looks like. You learn to carry the grief with you, and you carry it differently, because the grief, it starts out really, really big, like a big suitcase. And then as you go on the journey, you do the work to heal to where the grief becomes very, very small, to where you can just tuck it in your pocket. You know how to carry it well now. I know how to carry it well, the grief over, again, the marriage. Just 2 weekends ago, I was in Dallas and ministering at a conference, and a guy came up to me. I didn't know who he was. You know how people look at you like you supposed to know who they are? I'm like, baby, I'm 60. I don't know. Tell me who you are, honey. I don't know who you are. And he said, I used to go to your church. You pastored me, you and your husband. And I said, oh my God. Oh my God. It's been years. And we kind of reminisced in that moment. And I had a grief moment, but it wasn't sad. What was the grief? I'm like, man, we did have some good times. Because sometimes your grief, the pain of grief will cause you to not remember the happy times that you had. I'm like, man, we did have some good times. That's how my grief showed up. No tears in sight. Hallelujah. Praise God. My grief has changed. It looks differently. So healthy integration looks like what? You can remember without collapsing. That's what I did. I remembered, and it didn't take me. I didn't collapse. So if you're still collapsing, that means your grief is fresh, it's new. And let me say this. When I say it's fresh and it's new, David Kessler, he's one of the other grief experts in the industry. He talks about early grief, acute grief, early grief, mature grief, because grief never ends. It's what happens on the inside of you, but it does change, and the pain leaves. When you are in early grief, acute grief is right when the loss happens, within the first few months, of the loss. Early grief is the first 2 years. That's what he calls early grief. And 3 years up until today is what he calls mature grief. So the moment you put your stake in the ground to do the work, that's when the clock starts ticking. It's not necessarily when the person dies, because your loved one could have died 20 years ago. I got a witness on here, my mentee. I can tell her testimony. You can say, yes, ma'am, that is true. Again, she slipped into my DM one night, kind of like, the Nicodemus story, sneaking at night. And she came and she said, I just need some prayer. This woman can preach you, Dr. Rosalind Phoenix. She's also a therapist. Y'all look her up. Listen, she can help you with your therapy too. She focuses on children, but she will preach you under a pew. She will pray you. She's anointed. Her mantle is prayer. Will pray you under the pew. And she reached into my DM and say, hey, I need some help. I said, okay, what's going on? I just need prayer. I need prayer. I said, okay, cool. What you need? Okay. And as I began to ask her the right questions, I knew what was going on. I said, oh, no, you're in grief. You don't need prayer. She said, yes, I do. She was one of the ones that spiritualized too. Okay. She was one of the ones that spiritualized too. So I was able to help her, and her grandmother died over 20 something years ago. Tell the people. Tell the people, Dr. Ross, am I telling the truth? Put it in the chat so they don't think I'm just making something up. She just really properly mourned. Mourning is what happens on the outside of you. She's been grieving, but she's been grieving in pain, and she was stuck in grief. That's not how we're supposed to be. Okay? So how do you reframe that? You don't get over it. We kind of talked about that. So what is some healthy integration? It looks like you can remember without collapsing. You can experience joy without guilt. Joy without guilt. You create meaning from the loss. So what's some hidden struggles and grief? People feel guilt. People feel anger. People feel relief. And people have some spiritual tension. The guilt of, I should have done this. Why didn't I do that? The anger at the doctors. That was me when my dad died. I was angry at the doctors. He didn't give us enough time because he didn't tell us again that daddy had cancer and all of that. I was angry at him. I've been angry at family members. I've been angry at God, angry at yourself. That's a common response. Relief. Yes, you can experience relief after someone dies, especially after a long illness, but it often comes with shame. And yes, spiritual tension, mean like, where was God doing all of this? And why did this happen to me? All of those are normal responses. Normalize it and acknowledge it. It helps all of these emotions be processed. Okay. So what are some tools for you? And then I'm done. If you're fresh in your grief, focus on the basic things. Stop worrying about what's going to happen next year. Don't focus on now. You just got to get from day to day. Focus on eating, sleeping, and drinking water. Hydrate. Limit major decisions if you can. Try not to make many major decisions within the first year. Some of you have to, because you have to make, living arrangements. You have to move, but hopefully you don't have to. Definitely lean on safe people. If you're in ongoing grief, meaning at least 3 years beyond your loss, self-care. Keep maintaining your self-care. What do you want to do? Journaling. Very cathartic experience. It calls for an emotional release. When you journal, it allows you to release emotionally. Okay. Grief counseling of some kind, some support like coming on here is very good for you. And some type of ritual that you want to do. You can acknowledge, the date that they died. My dear friends, I love how she said it when her son, Chase, I think he was under 1 when he died. She calls it Glory Day. They're believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. And when he went to glory, she said, we call it the Glory Day instead of Death Day. So for all of the stages, whether you're in early grief or you're in ongoing grief, you're in mature grief, again, just give your grief a voice. You want to talk. Honor your peace. Now, honoring your peace may mean separating yourself from certain folk, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Avoid comparing your grief with other people. Doesn't matter what happened to, again, in the sense that, yes, someone's loved one was murdered. Your loved one died in the sleep. Your loved one's death that died in the sleep is just as important as the one whose life was taken. Let's not compare. Okay? So your homework, and as Miss Marie comes and gives us our final words, is identify one thing you missed and one thing that you are learning in your grief experience, because grief is a teacher if we allow it. So Ms. Marie, you can come on back as I look at some of these comments here. Ms. Wanda, is this good for you? You said this is good. We need to know this. Absolutely, we do. Thank you for sharing that. That's my whole point. After going through grief, again, I have been in the industry, as I've stated, for years, but people weren't calling me to speak, Marie. People weren't calling me to speak until I went through the healing process. I did it publicly. I did what some call healing out loud, because I had hit my rock bottom. And what I've discovered, healing publicly, it helped other people understand they can heal too. So that's why now my anointing, my call, my gifting is to help people process through. And I'm called to middle-aged people. Listen, life ain't over because we middle-aged. Praise the Lord. It's just beginning. Pastor Wendell says, God bless you. It's been 2 whole years since my wife passed and I'm still coping. Listen to the man of God. He came to grief support and he still comes periodically when he can. But in the beginning, he was faithful about that. That's what we've got to get the message to our pastors and our leaders. John Hanna, he's one of the pastors I watch. He's in Chicago. He had a dear friend to pass away, and that death hit him hard because he's posting about it. And I love one of the videos he made. He said, I got to learn as a pastor how to deal with grief, because as pastors, we're taught to take care of the sheep, but we don't take care of ourselves. So thank you, Pastor, for sharing that. Thank you so much. Let's see. And I think it was Maisha. So, Maisha, what you laughing at? Oh, focus on the drinking. Water, Maisha. I want you to drink water. Okay? Not the alcohol. I ministered a message today called Crown Royal.
Oh Lord.
And I'm not going
Oh Lord.
I talked about Esther. Y'all got to go watch that message. Go to Inspiring Temple of Praise. Yeah, it was Crown Royal. So, okay. Thank you. I'm back to you, Miss Marie.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cunningham, for sharing grief in real time. But that's kind of how I got to tell you, I was at a funeral this weekend, my cousin, and he is a pastor of a church. And we were just talking about his wife died, and so he was dating. He was on the dating scene, and then he's not dating anymore. So he said he got the little ladies at the church that are bringing him casseroles. I'm gonna have to share that story with him about hitting that spot.
You hit the spot. Tell him. It hit the spot. Thank you.
We were just talking about that yesterday. It's so funny. But thank you all for joining us virtually. And keep in mind that next month we will be virtual again, the month of May. Oh, let's talk about the month of May. That's a special month, y'all. That's my birthday month. So I want you guys to just think about me next month until we meet again, same time next month, fourth Sunday, 3:30 to 4:30. I want you guys to know too that Mr. Franklin is watching, and he's just saying to say hello. So we'll see him hopefully next month. Bye bye.